When did you start covering the war in Yemen?
Yemen, I mean, we have never stopped covering, wars. There have been internal conflicts since they started between the government and the Houthis in 2004 until 2010. But the major conflict that we have been covering Yemen for years, and it was the conflict that erupted, in 2015 when the Houthis, backed by Iran, they took over the capital and overthrew the government. And since then, I mean, the war started. Also, the Saudi-led coalition started bombing the Houthis, and I have covered the war since it broke out until late, 2009. Then I was completely exhausted because I have covered the war for more than 5 years continuously. I have been subjected to kidnapping. I have been injured, and could have lost my eye, and I survived it several times. And I was also harassed and received death threats. Despite of all this, I continued to report because it was very important, particularly from the siege, the Taiz city, which has been under siege by the Houthis until today. It was the situation, humanitarian situation, was very tough and difficult for everyone. I had to stay there and report from the front lines, and it has been a very intensive experience, but it has also brought a lot of damage, I mean, to myself, Personally, I am still haunted by the trauma of nightmares of covering these wars. My mother died in Sana'a, and they buried her in our village. I couldn't go and see her. So the trauma of this coverage, I think I will carry for a long time. So it's a very long experience, but it has a lot of consequences, on personal level.
Did it have consequences in terms of showing the world what was happening there?
Definitely. I mean, I'm very happy about what I have done, particularly in Taiz, because it was under siege, and I have reported a lot about the humanitarian situations, and I have received a lot of attention in my reports. Some of them, I could go to hospitals, report on the problems they were facing, dialysis of patients, people suffering from kidney problems, people suffering from shortage of medicine. And they said the other day, and the next day, because of your report, we have been supported, and you saved the lives of so many patients. So I have tried my best, I mean, to uncover the humanitarian crisis, the humanitarian disaster that was there in the city, particularly during siege and under siege. The city, the situation was very tough, very difficult. There were moments we couldn't find ice, we couldn't find food, we couldn't find the yogurt. It was a very tough time for the city and for the people, and we needed them to show the world what was happening there.
And what is the situation in Yemen today?
The situation is really very difficult, and, right now. I mean, we have two governments, government by the Houthis, of the Houthis, which is not recognized. In the north, they're controlling, they have stiff measures, security measures, authoritarian regime there, brutal regime. And also at the same time, in the government areas, situation is very loose. Security problems are there. The humanitarian situation is very bad. The economic is not existing. I can say it's suffering a lot. There has been a lot of economic issues, including devaluation of the currency. It's a very bad situation right now, and of course with what happened in the Red Sea attacks by the Houthis, the Houthi involvement in the Gaza war, it has added more fuel into the fire and complicated the Yemeni conflict. The Yemeni conflict is no longer a conflict between internal parties, but it has regional dimension and even international dimension. And now the people have started to realize how important to look and to pay attention to the Yemeni conflict after the Houthis started to make the attacks on ships in the Red Sea, and they continue to make such problems. So every now has suffered. If the pain of Yemeni crisis has reached Europe, had reached maybe Canada and everywhere, because of the Houthi strikes in the Red Sea against ships, and also the Houthi involvement in the war in Gaza. So it has become more and more complicated, and Yemen has become a chip in the international game. Iran supporting the Houthis, Americans bombing the Houthis, Israelis bombing the Houthis. So it's more complicated. People were expecting maybe after 8 years, the Saudis wanted to exit from the Yemeni conflict, and they proposed a roadmap, which was nobody knew about the content of this roadmap into 2022, and people thought that it could maybe move forward, and maybe when it is given to the UN, it could maybe develop in a way or another that could lead Yemen to a peace process. Even though myself, I thought that it will not work because it was ambiguous. Nobody know about what's happening, and despite of that, the Houthis started to bomb, the ships in the Red Sea. They started to attack also Israel, and since then nothing. We are still, it's a stalemate situation. Nothing is moving. Nobody knows where is Yemen heading. It's a state of no war and no peace, and it is very tormenting, to the people. People are suffering a lot. People are dying of hunger, and there is no a little light in that dark tunnel that shows that Yemen could move to, but rather the situation is getting more and more complicated because of this, as I said, the Houthi involvement in the war in Gaza, and how it has become, a regional problem, and also an international issue. Now Yemen is part of the global game between the United States, the Iranian, and also the international, and also other regional players. So yeah.
So, if you're speaking to people in the West, is there any message that you have for them or any suggestion that would help to improve the humanitarian situation?
I think the international community, there was a fault that has been, or the mistake that has been going on for decades, in terms of how the West has dealt with Yemen, particularly the United States. They look at Yemen as a problem, or as a country that posed some problem to Saudi Arabia, which is the major, oil producer, and they looked at Yemen from the lens of the interests of the Saudis. They didn't look at Yemen as a state on its own, as a country that is located in a very important strategic location, which is Bab al Mandab, which is where 30% of the oil is passing through, to Europe and other countries. They didn't look at that at Yemen in such a way, and they thought that Yemen is a Gulf business that they can handle as it is, until they started to feel the pain when the Houthis started bombing the ships in the Red Sea, exercising a lot of problems for everyone. Everyone was feeling the pain because the insurance has increased. Ships have to go through the Cape of Good Hope rather than passing through the Bab al Mandab, and this is increasing, the insurance, and the people well feel. Has started to pay more for commodities and for goods, for fuel. So Yemen is no longer a local issue. Yemen is no longer a domestic conflict between the government and the Houthis, or a regional, or the conflict with regional dimension. The Yemen has to be in the heart of the international attention, because of its location, because of the consequences of this conflict. If it is getting worse and worse, we could see a lot of problems, and we could see, maybe Bab al Mandab being blocked completely. So I think also the international community, they have to revisit, their attitude towards Yemen, their view, towards the conflict, and to reread the situation in a very deep way, and understand the real roots of the conflict, and try to help in addressing this conflict in a way that that create a sustainable peace rather than putting off the fire and then it will be erupting again.